demonstrated for him and his honor of personage, of sanctity? The Muslims did. So as they would demonstrate and campaign against anyone who ridicules or characterizes the Prophet of Islam, likewise they would campaign and demonstrate for those who violate the sanctity of any of the Prophets. So that ruling doesn't simply, isn't simply concerning the Prophet himself, but it's concerning all of the Prophets of God. There is a sanctity about them that will not allow us to find, faults to the degree of being, rude towards them or anything like that. So we should keep restraint with them in their honor.
Any more questions?
So, dear brothers and sisters, I'm a brother, Sheikh. You mentioned in the talk of speak the truth even if it's against you. But say if someone doesn't abide by those rulings, but they're out there telling the truth, would that fall into hypocrisy? And is there
truth? Again, if someone doesn't do that, you mean?
Yeah, you said that speak the truth even if it's against you. So does that mean that even if you don't abide by that, but you know it's the truth, then would that fall into hypocrisy?
Yeah, for sure it can. For sure it can. Because you were told to be witnesses against ourselves at times when we know that we have done wrong. And part of problems why that happens of course a lot in marital relations, where the husband may have done a wrong, the wife may have done a wrong, but there is a degree of if ego sets in, we're unable, we feel difficult to say sorry, whatever, or to say that I made the problem, I did the wrong, or the error, whatever. So of course it can lead to hypocrisy, because you're not being true. It's easy to preach to anyone else, like one of the scholars said that ikhlas, sincerity is to go out and you condemn people for Allah's sake, meaning you rectify good and bad, but then you go home and you correct and condemn yourself even more, right? You're more concerned about yourself, your own disposition, because it could be that it's quite easy, of course, to condemn everything else and to instruct people to change their ways. That's quite easy, but it's harder for you to do it to yourself. So we should, of course, be concerned about where we're going in lives as we're concerned about where other people are also going.
Are there any more questions?
Sorry, what was your last part? I didn't hear.
Do you have tips or advice or things that you give us to reach this balance?
Yeah, well, I think essentially, we need some kind of a paradigm shift, because this is incorrect that people will see that as a sign of weakness. And those, of course, who have heard of or have seen programs like The Apprentice would obviously understand that, right? Where the way to success is to come off as over and set, right, to the point of backstabbing your fellow men, or after the same kind of thing, right? Or to be, to be backstabbed, or to be, over eager. That isn't something or an ideal that the Prophet ever encouraged in his life, right? To be over eager to do anything, hasty in anything, right? Except, of course, in good deeds. Like in one hadith, he was asked, Ayyul Mu'mineen Akyas, who is the most sagacious of people? And again, here you need a paradigm shift, because if you ask a normal man who is the wisest person, they say maybe the one who can make the most money in the quickest time, perhaps, or something like that, right? He says the most sagacious or the wisest person is the one who remembers death the most and prepares the most for it is the wisest person, right? So again, it needs a complete change of attitude, or way of looking, or mindset. If you're concerned about the hereafter, you wouldn't worry about what people are saying in the dunya. So the point is, and of course this is based upon conventions. Of course, it doesn't mean that whatever the standards are here in this country, not to say that everything is bad, likewise everything isn't good either, but the point is not the same that you would find in other countries. Maybe in other countries the standard isn't if you show kindness as a sign of weakness. Alright? And the second thing is we wouldn't want to tailor our whole behavior or persona around the expectations of other people. That is a sign of weakness, it comes to me. That is weakness. That means that you have no sense of being, you're simply being like someone else. Right? So the being element has gone, but it's a being like that's taking pride place. So you want to be like this person because this person is successful. Like in Chris Hedges' book, and also Neil Gable has a very good book on narcissism and narcissism, about the idea of self-indulgence. Alright? Where he argues that if you look at the way that narcissistic people operate, yeah, they thrive, of course, on other people's weakness, isn't it? Yeah? So when they see you in a weak situation, they will become more self-indulgent. They will become more narcissistic, if you like, right? But that's not the way we're supposed to be, right? If you look at the hadith of our Prophet ﷺ, Prophet always taught us about like in the famous 7 instructions he gave to Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, Amarani, Awsani Khalili Bisaba, my intimate friend, advised me with 7 things. The first one is, Amarani bihubbil masakin. He commanded me to love the poor. So in a world, therefore, where you may feel you need to love the rich because of the glamour and the gloss and the color and the neon lights and the music that accompanies them and all of this fantastic aesthetic appeal and scenery, right? He told us no, paradigm shift, no. Amarani bihubbil masakin. He taught us, instructed us, commanded us to love the poor, right? Amarani an anzur ila man huwa duni wa la anzur ila man huwa fawqi. Commanded me to look to the one who has less, not to the one who has more, right? So we shouldn't, firstly, kind of codify ourselves or define ourselves around the expectations of others. Number one, those expectations are subject to change. Isn't that? People don't have the same disposition all the time. If people living in the 21st century, for example, believe that showing goodness or kindness is a sign of weakness, it doesn't mean that's the same mindset attitude you're going to have in the next decade, for example, even. And not just that, but depending on where you're living. It doesn't mean that where I'm living in the south is the same as what you guys are experiencing over here. Oftentimes the north and the east, the south and the north, I have some kind of difference between them. But the point is this, we should live as Allah commanded us to live, right? Not as people, not as what the latest fad or the trend actually is, right? Because that is entering into a life that is a mirage, that is an illusion. That is an illusion, right? We should follow the haqq. Allah mentions so many times about the essence, the truth, the truthfulness of affairs, the real world, the real reality. In the Quran, Allah says, اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد. Allah says, know that the reality of this life is what? 5 things, remember them. لعب وله, play and amusement. And what? Adornment. Right? And rivalry amongst yourselves and competition in wealth and children. There's a brilliant miracle in this verse, in fact, the way that Allah brings these 5 stages together. If you imagine youngsters, right, who are like Sue Palmer in her book on toxic childhood, has a very good demonstration of this, in fact, about children. If you imagine children, the most amazing thing for them is simple play. It's not even entertainment. At least it's entertaining through simple play. You could give a child a cardboard box, at least you could. Perhaps now it's changing, but maybe you still can. Maybe there's still some people left in our world. You guys should visit the Museum of Childhood in Edinburgh. It will really open your eyes. But in any case, you give them a cardboard box and they could play with that, and that's enough to fulfill them. That's just enough. They could break the box, color on the box, try and make the box sail in the bathtub, anything. But now if you're living in the time of the Xbox, right, then of course things are very different, right? Because now they want different forms of entertainment where there are lights and there is movement and there are sounds. And this is why in Little Postman's arguments, the late Little Postman died in 2006, his argument is what? That there is some kind of a warped or a skewed transition from childhood to adulthood. Where is the child if kids are playing the same games as adults are, if 5 and 6 and 7 years old children are playing the computer games the same ones that the adults are playing, if girls are dressing the same way as their mothers are, if men are speaking the same way with the same vulgarity and profanity as adults are, where is the transition from this to that? This was Neil Postman's argument. So the point is, okay, so lagab, play, and then Allah says lahu, then it's amusement. So as you grow older in years, 7, 8, now you want to be amused, you want to see the circus act, you want to see things happen. Forget the box, you know, lazy the part. You want to see the light, you hear the music, right? And then Allah says wazina, then it's adornment. Then it's like, you know, who has the best clothes, who's wearing the best makeup, who has the best hijab, for example, you know, who has the best of this. It's adornment. And then Allah says, وَتَفَاخُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ, then it's rivalry amongst yourselves. Right? And you have, I've written an article recently about bullycide, in fact, about suicide because of bullying. It's a terrible, terrible thing. Right? We should be ever eager to learn and to help people who are victimized and subject to things like bullying. It's a terrible, terrible thing. There's a book I brought from America called Bullycide. And it's about 7, 8 stories written by mothers of each lost a son or a daughter to suicide because of bullying. And likewise, there's a book with the same title that's published in England. So we should learn about these things because it keeps us on edge, right? We are scared to ever wrong anyone, ever transgress the limits of anyone, if we learn about these kind of very contemporary and modern kind of phenomena. People don't know the history about these kind of things. And so then Allah says, then it's increase in wealth and children. So you have 5 stages, right? But as you can see from the earlier ones, in fact all of them, there is a degree, if you take out the lagab, which is of a child, in the others there is some element of narcissism that can creep into that. If we fixate ourselves with that kind of world of existence. And so my advice to you, sister, is that you completely remain unconcerned with what other people think or say, but you strive to have the best ideals and the best character and the best heart. Because in the Quran, Allah says, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. On that day, the day of judgment, nothing will benefit the people, not their wealth, not their children, except the one who comes to Allah with a sound heart. So may Allah make us of those with sound hearts.
Any more questions? I was just wondering if you can give some examples of websites and books that we should read from the beginning.
Yeah, we should read the Quran. Really, read the Quran, but read the Quran with a sense of reflection. Don't read the Quran as if it's some kind of holy book or as a ritual. Read the Quran with a sense of, one second, okay? With a sense of reflection, bit tadabbur. This is what the Quran in fact calls towards. Right? إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. Indeed, we have revealed this Quran in the Arabic language, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ, so that you may think and ponder and reflect. So the Quran is very elliptical. It forces you to answer some of its questions and to think deeply about its content. So we should begin by reading the Quran. In terms of the kind of things that I like to read about, I read a lot about social issues affecting people. I love the works of Neil Postman, Amusing Yourself to Death, of course, is a bestseller. Before it was a brilliant book. You can buy that very cheap now from Amazon. He also has other books, Building the Bridge to the 18th Century, by the same author. The End, or I think The End of Childhood, I think he has a book like that. Likewise, Neil Gabler has a very good book on life, the movie. Very good book. He has written a book on Walt Disney as well, actually, how the Hollywood industry tries to captivate people by bringing them into a very illusory kind of world, right? The focus is not on the idea, it's on the image. That's it. So people are more concerned about how people look. And, people like Chris Hedges, their argument is that, okay, how do you become famous in this kind of world? If you're a good person, like the sister was asking, if you're a good person, if you don't cheat, you don't steal, you don't backbite, you don't slander,